John out here with you. It is September 3rd, 2020. How is everybody doing out there today? I mentioned better days ahead after I puked all over The Last of Us 2 video review. Now it's Ghost of Tsushima, and I'm going to refer to it as they refer to it in the game, Tsushima, Ghost of Tsushima. Video review on PlayStation 4. I'm going to try to get through all of these elements as quickly as I can, so bear with me here, and I hope I get to your thoughts at the end of this, or leave some comments below. So the story is a pretty simplistic one, and I think a lot of us are totally on board with that. You play as Jin Sakai. You want to free your uncle, Lord Shimura, and save him from Khotan Khan and save the world, and just battle with your samurai code and everything else that you brought into as you go throughout the game. That's pretty much what you're doing. You're rescuing your uncle Shimura and saving Tsushima from Khotan Khan. So this is a 16th century feudal Japan samurai type game. We haven't had a lot of these, and the last one I think I played, whether it's Onimusha Warlords or Way of the Samurai from Spike and Shunsoft, it's been a long time. In fact, this is only Sucker Punch's second game on the PlayStation 4 consoles. They pretty much opened the PS4 with infamous Second Son, and now they close it with Ghost of Tsushima, and it's one of the best dang games I ever played on the console, and one of my favorite games, I would think, in a long time. So let's talk about it here. The exploration, as you play as Jin Sakai, there's 3 different acts. And you're pretty much starting, you're trying to rescue your uncle Lord Shimura. You go through some of the samurai code, as I mentioned. You fight between becoming the Ghost of Tsushima and everything else that you were brought up on with honor and integrity, and killing enemies face to face through swords and bowing down, or succumbing to using kunai, sticky bombs, firecrackers, other things like that to keep yourself deceptive and keep the enemy off guard. It's pretty interesting how Jin transforms throughout the campaign. The campaign itself is about 30 to 40 hours if you follow the main storyline, but if you do a lot of the exploration, as I have done, and you're probably going to do that because the game is just so freaking good you don't want it to end, I can tell you, even though there isn't a timer in this game, I really feel like I've gotten close to the 100-hour mark before I go ahead and bring you this review the best that I can here. So exploration, as you see a little bit of it here, you're going to go ahead and you're going to get your health increased in hot springs. You're going to cut down bamboo to increase your resolve so you can do more attacks and stuff like that to keep the enemy off balance. You're going to visit different shrines with the fox in the fox den. You get to pet the fox, which is really cool. He's always freaking awesome. To power up your charms and stuff that you can use, you want to climb cliff sides and find other shrines and things like that that you can honor. It's a pretty much beautiful exploration as you try to find ways to grappling hook across or scale mountains to try to get some of your other equipment and everything else stronger. You're going to learn a bunch of new techniques as you go along. And as you level up, there really isn't a leveling up system, but as you help people, you will increase your legend, and as your legend increases, you'll become closer to becoming the Ghost of Tsushima, and as your legend increases, whether just by killing enemies or helping out other villagers or doing other mission tasks, or raiding Mongol camps and completing bonus objectives so you can get more experience that way, that's how you learn a lot of your skills. So it really is freaking awesome, and this is a game that you can take around at your own pace. And as you talk about it, as you see it here, you can even take time to find new places and explore the scenery, compose haikus. The haikus are always really cool, the way all that stuff is done. I always like doing that in class when you're composing some things in haiku, especially when it was like high school and stuff like that. That's always a lot of fun. The scenery in this game is absolutely freaking beautiful. Now, you may say as you play throughout the game, there's overuse of wind. The wind is your exploration. What you pretty much do is you have your thumb on the touchpad for a couple seconds, you swipe up, and when you pick a spot on the map by hitting the options button and clicking on a place you want to go to, the wind will blow there and guide you there. Now, there's You might say there's an overabundance use of the wind and leaves and stuff like that, but the game just looks freaking gorgeous. Although, I would think this is one of the most graphically intensive games on the PlayStation 4, because even with just a base PS4, and I know the PS4 Pros sound a lot louder, but it pretty much sounds like a jet engine taking off when I'm playing this game for the most part, because it's absolutely freaking graphic intensive, and I can totally understand why as you play throughout this game. So when you're talking about the gameplay itself, we haven't had a lot of these games. As I mentioned, Onimusha Warlords from Capcom on PS2. You had 4 different games. You had Way of the Samurai on PS2. It's been a long time since we had a samurai-style game. And Sucker Punch absolutely knocked it out of the park. They didn't get a lucky shot in there. The gameplay is incredible. Now what happens is, as you level up, as I said, you also will learn stances. And when you learn different stances, whether it be a stone stance to go up against different swordmen, whether it be a spear stance with the triangle button to try to knock away some of the spears, moon stance for the big ass brute enemies, or the water stance to defend against guys that have shields, you're going to learn different move sets. And basically they all kind of work the same, but you want to equip the correct stance to take out the correct enemy quickly. So what you can do is your triangle button is your heavy attack, so you can kind of hold the triangle button and then release to do some big time heavy attacks to stagger the enemy. And then when the stagger is there, you will see the white meter above the enemy's head get taken away, and then you can launch some of your killing blows and take out the enemy. So whether it's just water stance with quick strikes to take out guys with shields, or the stone stance with the swordman to get the stabbing motions to take them out, or the moon stance to do some spinning attacks against the big brutes to get them off guard, or having the stuff at the top of the spear stance so that you can kick guys and knock them down. There's a whole different mix of combinations that you can do in your stances. But also, you wouldn't be the Ghost of Tsushima without having some good sub-weapons. So whether you have kunai, they're not throwing stars, but they're a little bit kind of like shurikens. You can use the kunai, and you can power up all of your ghost weapons too, so you can throw multiple kunai, or you can use sticky bombs, or you can use smoke bombs to conceal yourself. And then when you conceal yourself, if you have the certain skills leveled up, you can assassinate multiple enemies in a given shot. Or you can use firecrackers to lure an enemy to you, and then you can use your bow and arrow to shoot like exploding arrows, or shoot other stuff like cans that can blow up, or beehives that can get all over the enemy, or you can use poison darts. You can use anything to your disposal. And what I really liked about this game the most, again, is another one of those games that allow you to explore things at your own pace, and when you're in the midst of the combat, you can do whatever you want to get through the situation. Now, there are a couple of instances in the game where you have to sneak around the enemy and you can be seen, but if you get caught, or if you fall off a cliff, or something happens and you die, you immediately can pretty much get respawned right where you're at, so you really don't have to worry about losing your progress. But for the most part, as I mentioned, there's so many different ways to take out enemies, and there's so many different ways to game plan, that the combat always feels fast-paced, fluid, and fresh every single time. Even when you're getting in the mark, as I mentioned, playing for about 100 hours, I believe, the combat never ever got stale. This is one of the best combat systems I think I've ever played in a video game. It's always freaking fun, and I loved it throughout the whole way through, whether it was the story, the combat, and everything else. This is one of the very best games on the PlayStation 4, and Sucker Punch absolutely knocked it out of the park. Considering this was only their second game on the console, I can't imagine, had it have taken them at least 5 or 6 years to make this game. The graphical polish, everything else in this game, not one glitch that I found, not one blue screen, anything else, absolute top notch as far as presentation and all of that to mention. So, we talked about Sucker Punch, and I mentioned infamous Second Son, and that was one of those things that kind of opened up the PlayStation 4 console. Absolutely great. Ghost of Tsushima is pretty much closing it out. So, I know it's only 2 games, but if you really want to talk about Company of the Year on the PlayStation 4, hard pressed, even though it's just 2 games, to even think of some other ones that kind of come close. because these two games knocked it out of the park. And if you didn't have enough after the 100-hour campaign, Ghost of Tsushima and Sucker Punch, all those guys announced that a free online multiplayer is going to be coming. So they didn't announce a date yet, but I imagine it's going to be here by the end of the year. So probably around a PS5 release, if you can be lucky enough to get one. But if you're still playing your PS4, definitely get super pumped for the Ghost of Tsushima multiplayer aspect of it, because I guarantee you it's going to be really, really good. So obviously, guys, if I'm scoring this game, I mean, I really don't see how you can give this game lower than a 9, honestly. And to me, I know it's hard to say sometimes you throw out perfect 10s like candy, and I try not to do that as much, as I can, but my goodness, man. I mean, I had so much fun with this game. If I give it a 10, I give it a 10 because, like I said, the combat and everything else never ever got stale. And I love the fact that even when you're using different armor and stuff like that, there's so many different aesthetics. And I get the aesthetics don't make the game, but the aesthetics and everything else are absolutely beautiful in the sense of, the way Jin can look, the way you can customize everything. The armors can be totally upgraded for totally different sets of playstyles, and when you combine that with the amounts of charms and things that you get, you can pretty much play your own way. I remember when I told you this in The Last of Us 2 review, that the books and everything else like that, and Naughty Dog said that you can play the game your own way and it's going to be completely customizable. They need to look at Ghost of Tsushima after seeing that. I know the game came out after, but that's the way you make gameplay completely customizable and tailored to the player to always have fun. Now, I played on the default medium difficulty. What I could say to you is this: you could play on the hard difficulty, because I can guarantee you're still going to be able to mull through all these enemies as much as you can, because when I got toward the end of it, the difficulty never got too easy and it never got way too hard. But I guarantee if you played on hard, I would pretty much imagine that the enemies would do a little bit more damage to you. I might have a little bit more variety in the moves that they use against you. But you could play on the hard difficulty and definitely, I would say, have a lot of fun with it. And it wouldn't be too, it wouldn't make you too over encumbered. I think you'd have a lot of fun with it in that regard. As far as the enemy variety, absolutely good. I mean, there's nothing bad I can say about that. I loved the different move sets and things and the stuff that the game threw at you as you increased from act to act to act. As I mentioned, there is 3 acts, but that doesn't mean the game is short. It depends about the 30 or 40 hours that you would get with the main campaign, but if you do a lot of exploration like I did, you're pretty much going to get toward that 80, 90 hour mark. And as you go from every single act, I believe in my heart of hearts the game expects you to do a little bit of exploration. So what I'm telling you is, if you go from Act 1 to Act 2 and all you really did is the main campaign, you're going to be missing out on a lot of stuff, and the enemies might kick your ass a little bit in the sense of it. But the combat is also very fluid in terms of that, and it doesn't take a lot to get used to. Like I said, you're just switching stances in order to take out some of the enemies depending on the weapons that they have. The white glint that you get means the attack can be blocked. Blue can be blocked if you upgrade some of your moves, and the orange or the red glint means you have to dodge the attacks, and you kind of get used to the rhythm of that, and everything else just feels good. So here, this is another one of these awesome aspects of the game, is this is a duel. So one-on-one duels, yeah, you can use some of your resolve and other techniques that you have on there, but this is pretty much you going against player that you got to go against and knowing the correct stances that you need to do and taking out the enemy and having a lot of fun with it. So I absolutely love the other Tales of Tsushima that were in there that lets you get, Way of the Flame, or, the Dance of Wrath, or some of the other moves. I know some of that stuff is optional, but if I was going to tell you something not to miss, it would be those blue Tales of Tsushima. It was one of those ones where the guy that you talk to plays the shamisen, and he tells you some of those stories that are beautifully told. Do all of those. Get to the end of that. Learn all the different moves. And as you go along, level up your ghost weapons. You can use different attacks where you can attack guys off of a horse. You can poison different enemies. There's lots of different things that you can do. So what I'm going to tell you is do all of the exploration you can to your heart's content. And if it gets a little crazy for you, don't hesitate to do a couple story missions in the main campaign and then come back. Because at the end of the game, when all this stuff is said and done, you can free roam and finish off the rest of the stuff that you haven't finished. But the one time I would say this, and I normally don't say this a lot, there is no New Game Plus in terms of this game, and that does kind of suck in the sense of if you want to go ahead and try to play all this stuff over again, because you might want to, because it is that much damn fun, there isn't a New Game Plus. But like I said, with the online multiplayer coming, I think that that's going to be enough to whet everybody's appetite, and I would imagine, as this game is sold pretty damn well, it's not Last of Us 2 numbers, but it's one of the fastest selling games on PlayStation, the PS4. This is one to not be missed, and if you're lucky enough to even get a PS5 on launch, it wouldn't be a bad idea to start with Ghost of Tsushima, I'm telling you, because if you haven't played it, don't miss out. This is John Ott signing off for Ghost of Tsushima. Don't miss it, guys. Have a good one. Peace.